Welcome to the May 22nd, 2025 Social Equity Working Group meeting. As the chair, I'm calling today's meeting to order at 9:37 a.m. I would now like to ask today's interpreter to introduce themselves and walk through how to access our interpretation services for today's meeting.
Good morning, interpreter announcement. To use the interpretation feature, please scroll to the bottom of the Zoom screen where the meeting controls are. Click on the interpretation icon, World, and then select English as your language. If you are joining through the Zoom mobile app, cell phone, tablet, etc., please press the ellipsis, then interpretation, and then choose your language. Finally, click on mute original audio to not hear the original Spanish flow in the background. Headsets are available for interpretation. If you're in the meeting room, please check out a headset from the receptionist in the lobby. Aviso por parte del intérprete. Para hacer uso del servicio de interpretación, favor de desplazarse a la parte inferior de la pantalla de Zoom donde aparecen los controles. Haga clic en el icono de interpretación globo terráqueo y seleccione español. Si está utilizando la aplicación móvil de Zoom, celular, tableta, etc., presione los puntos suspensivos, luego interpretación y luego el idioma. Si no desea escuchar el audio original en inglés en el fondo, por favor seleccione Mute Original Audio, silenciar audio original. Contamos con auriculares disponibles para el servicio de interpretación. Si se encuentra en la sala de reunión, favor de pedir auriculares con la recepcionista en el vestíbulo. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I will ask our clerk, Mr. Michael Garcia, to confirm that we have a quorum.
And we have a quorum, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the land we call home. The tribal nations of the San Diego region has historically faced injustices. We acknowledge the harmony that existed between the land, nature, and its original peoples, who have since endured displacement, persecution, and systemic oppression. We pay our respect to the unceded territory in the homelands of the 18 tribal nations in our region, the most in any county in the United States. From the 4 cultural groups, the Kumaye, Digüeño, the Luiseño, and the Cupeño and the Cahuila. This land has nourished, healed, protected, and embraced them for many generations in a relationship of balance and harmony. As members of the SANDAG community, we acknowledge this legacy and we aspire to learn from the indigenous traditional knowledge and experiences in undoing the injustices of the past. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now I will review the meeting process for both the working group members as well as the members of the public who wish to participate. For working group members, when you would like to speak, please raise your hand and I will call on you by name. In front of you are iPads where you will find today's agenda and supporting materials by clicking on the arrow on the top left. Please note that you can zoom in and zoom out using the iPad touchscreen. Clerk, can you provide a quick reminder on how the public comments will work?
Sure. Thank you, Chair. As noted on the cover page of today's meeting agenda, in addition to email comments, the public may also provide live comments during today's meeting. So if you're a member of the public here in the room and would like to provide comments on an item, please submit a speaker slip to the clerk. If you're a member of the public joining us on Zoom, please raise your virtual hand during the item you'd like to comment on. The raise hand feature can be found on the Zoom toolbar for those who are joining via computer or by entering *9 for those joining via telephone. I will call on members of the public first here in the room, followed by virtual commenters, and commenters will be called by the name or by the last 3 digits of the telephone number for those joining via telephone.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Clerk. Do any members of the working group have any questions on the meeting procedures before we continue? All right, good. Is this where you want to do the? Okay. Let's begin with item number 1. Item number 1 is members of the public shall have the opportunity to address the working group on any issue within the jurisdiction of SANDAG that's not on the agenda. Item number 1 is member and public comments. Clerk, are there any public comments for this item?
We have no in-person public comments. I think I see two slips just walking in, but in the meantime, there's one online right now. That's Alex Wong. Alex Wong, you have 2 minutes. Is that okay, Chair? For the public comment timing, 2 minutes is okay?
Yes, that's fine.
Alex Wong, go ahead.
To maximize ridership growth, we first need to maximize frequency on the busiest existing lines. Frequency is first and foremost to riders because they perceive 1 minute spent waiting for the train as equivalent to 2 or even 3 minutes spent on board a moving bus or train. Furthermore, of course, there's an emphasis on safety, on rider safety, and rightly so. However, let's also consider that the vast majority of crimes on the trolley system happen not on board trolleys themselves, but rather at trolley stations. That means reducing the amount of time passengers have to wait at trolley stations will work wonders in helping them feel safer. We thus need to maximize frequency on the blue and green lines, which are San Diego's top 2 busiest transit routes. They each need 7.5-minute or better frequencies from end to end, especially because population and ridership on both is about to explode. The blue line serves University City, which just approved a plan to add 72,000 new jobs and over 50,000 new residents. The green line serves Mission Valley, which plans to add up to 50,000 new residents, and Grantsville, which could add up to 22,000 new residents. And both the green and blue lines will serve Navor, which alone will add over 15,000 residents and several thousand employees near Old Town. With population growth like this, even 4-car trains running every 7.5 minutes on the blue and green lines each could be inadequate. In fact, ridership was already growing so fast on the mid-coast that MTS planned to increase frequencies from 15 to 7.5 minutes in June 2025 before the SB 125 funding suspension. Eventually, we'll likely need trains every 5 or 6 minutes on each line. Therefore, we need to avoid any decision that might limit frequencies on the blue line or green line to every 10 minutes.
Thank you. Next, we will turn to public comment in person.
We have 2 in person. The first is Purita Javier, followed by Cesar Javier, and you both have 2 minutes each.
November 24th, 2024, the city mayor, city council members, city attorney, city development services department, city planning department, San Diego Police Department, city land use and environment group, to whom it may concern. We, the residents of Choyas Parkway, Leia, Streamview, Salta, Boise, Mina, Limona, 51st Street, West Bank of Choyas Creek of District 9, certify and report that a home base at 5238 Streamview Drive, ceramics manufacturing and kiln industrial operation has been operating since December 17, 1984 and renewed December 31st, 2024 in our community designated as residential zone. Ceramics kiln industrial activity is known to produce toxicity polluting the air we breathe and impacting health and safety of residents, especially children and seniors with existing medical condition. The names? I cannot. Daniel Rico. 60.
He's a Army veteran. Next.
Army veteran, Charlie,
Vietnamese American.
Thank you,
Vietnamese
Purita. Your
American.
time has expired. Next is Cesar Javier.
Javier, my wife, who is now Alzheimer dementia, moderate to lower level. We are hurt. Thank you, SANDAG. We we gain hope from you. We are fellow students, fellow teachers. We learn from each other. We are consistently in attendance. Thank you, SANDAG. We are protectors. We are defenders. This is our Bible, so we are here to pronounce to you we are hurt because of this environmental justice issue in our humble community, underserved, disadvantaged, because of our poor leadership. Poor leadership. We have discussed this lengthily in this university, SANDAG, and this is the root cause of why there is what we call inequity in services, in the delivery of public goods. They only deliver for those who are haves. Look at La Jolla. Look at those wealthy neighborhood. But ours, we have intelligent immigrants, Asian Americans, Latino Americans, African Americans. Why is the government like that? This is very clear. We have to maintain what we call equity. Mayor Gloria condole the victims of fire in LA. He did never mention the victims right at the border, District 8, who are sick and even dying. They do not even care whether the air purifier was already distributed or not. What are they doing? Because they do not have a department, lead agency on health
Thank you,
and human
Caesar. Your
services.
time has expired.
Help us, SANDAG.
That concludes our public comment on non-agenda items, Chair.
Thank you so much. Do we have any members of the working group who would like to give comment or have questions on items not on the agenda? All right, thank you. I would like to share, oh yeah, go ahead. Claire Grosvenor.
Thank you. I just wanted to acknowledge and thank our public commenters today. You know, we're here to advance social justice and equity and environmental justice in our neighborhoods, and all these things are connected, right? So I just wanted to thank you all for continuing to come out.
Right. I have a few comments. First, thank you to everyone who attended the microtransit working group meeting that was held last month. It was great to hear all of your voices there. And another thank you to everyone for promoting and participating in this year's Bike Anywhere Day, with some of you hosting your own pit stops. We logged more than 10,000 pit stop visits. Finally, the public comment period for the draft 2025 regional plan will begin tomorrow, May 23rd, and will go through July 18th. You all should already be aware that your outreach folks are working with our staff to plan events to support outreach at this stage, and also encourage your community members to attend SANDAG's sub-regional workshops to ensure their voices are heard. I'll turn it over to Ms. Zamita.
Thanks. We have two additional agency updates that staff is going to share. So first, we'd like to welcome Jennifer Bianchi to the podium.
Can you hear me? Okay, sorry about that. I'm Jennifer Bianchi. I'm a manager with the Office of Diversity and Equity. I wanted to introduce Kevin Ressler. He is a new add to our department. He is taking over the position that was formerly held by Catherine Thibault. So Kevin is a senior analyst on our team. He covers civil rights functions, things like Title VI, ADA, social equity. So Kevin, if you wanted to briefly introduce yourself.
Thanks, Jennifer. Good morning, everyone. It's nice to be here. It's so sunny here. I came from gloomy Maryland about a week and a half ago, and I'm so excited to be here with all of you. I started my career with the Indiana Department of Transportation, doing DBE and Title VI and ADA, moved to Federal Highway, where I did that at the state and national level. And now I'm here, and I'm really excited. I really feel like we're going to be on this journey together, trying to keep the core principles of civil rights and equity intact. So thank you, and I look forward to working with you all.
Wonderful. Welcome on board.
Thank you. And now we'll welcome Ashley Wiley up to the podium.
Hello, Ashley Wiley. I just wanted to give a brief update on a new project that SANDAG has going on. So SANDAG has engaged a consultant to help us modernize the governance framework to ensure clear roles and responsibilities, to streamline decision-making processes, and improve communication channels between all of our stakeholders. So we're going to have a survey that's coming out in the next couple weeks. So as members of our Regional Plan Social Equity Working Group, we really appreciate your feedback and perspectives. So the email will come from myself or Ariana, the PM on the project, and we'll also have it come through CAT as well. Thank you.
We will now proceed to approving agenda item number 2, which are the March 27th Social Equity Working Group and May 8th Joint Working Group meeting minutes. Just need a motion. Oh, we have public comments on this. Do we have any public comments on this item?
I think we're checking. Just a moment,
Okay,
Chair.
okay.
We do have public comment on the consent agenda first. It's Cesar Javier on the consent agenda.
On minutes, Madam Chair, I'm sorry. I am a learner, so I'm sorry for this. On minutes, we public value this particular subject because this is our patrimony. Yestertime, which is a benchmark, a milestone of what had transpired in our think tank activities. Our issue in the community, particularly its solution, is long awaited. And so we're excited reading all the minutes. We have it as a test also because we should be working, we should be discussing, no holds bar. Everybody has something to input. Gold dust in our gold panning. We need that. And we are here, members of the public, to attest, witness, and remember your services, our services. Thank you from the bottom of our heart because we heard no less than the CEO, Mario Orozco, his honorable leadership gave us the pathway to do the right thing. He has the authority, and it's there in all those discussions. And therefore, he had shown to us too how the degree of accountability based on his policies disseminated to all of us
Thank you, Cesar. Your time has expired. And that concludes our public comment on this item, Chair.
Do any of the working group members have comment? Mr. Pollard?
Yes. I just wanted to, I'm sitting here reflecting. I've been coming to these meetings since Jesus was a child. And I just have to make a comment about the shift that SANDAG has made over the years. I remember coming here and there wasn't a whole lot of people of color sitting in this room. And I just wanted to acknowledge that that's a tough nut to crack in any agency, is to have the entire staff and leadership shift and spend more attention to communities of concern. The focus is obvious. I feel as UCP, we feel very supportive of SANDAG over the years. And it's allowed us to do some improvements even in the planning process of getting things done over in southeastern San Diego. Things that should have been taken care of decades ago. And, you know, my role at UCP is to calm folks down and say, this didn't get here overnight, so it's not going to be solved overnight. So I just want to give you guys props for going that extra mile and making sure that things in communities that normally get ignored is at least minimized. You know, you're not going to be able to catch everything, but at least I sense the focus moving. I remember sitting here getting all upset at North County over stuff, right? And it's more of a balance now. And so I just wanted to give you guys some props. You probably don't get it that often, so I want to say thank you. And let's keep pushing it.
Thank you so much. Any other members have comment? All right. As a reminder, you do not have to be present in order to vote on the meeting minutes. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? And do I have a second? Thank you. Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Pollard and a second by, sorry, Ms. Gill. And I have to work between the glasses. Clerk, can we please call the vote? Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any
Aye.
abstentions? And the motion passes unanimously with those members present.
Wonderful. Moving on to the next item, we have item number 3. This is the airport transit connection update. To kick us off, we have Marissa Mangan from SANDAG, who will present an update on the advanced planning and outreach for the airport transit connection project. Welcome, Marissa.
Good morning. Happy Friday Eve. Thanks for having me here today. My name is Marissa Mangan. I'm a regional planner here at SANDAG, and I'm going to talk to you about our planning progress to date on the airport transit connection. It's a project that we like to call ATC for short, so you'll hear me use that nickname throughout the presentation. I'm going to share some brief project context while relaying our progress to date and let you know what we have in store for the remainder of the year. So one thing I need to say up front, in case you're not already aware, but we've been slowly but surely updating our board, committees, and working groups on the fact that SANDAG is no longer planning for a central mobility hub, a new, large Grand Central type of station within our region. We're solely focused on the airport transit connection as a transit link project to better connect the airport to our regional transportation system. And I want to take a moment to emphasize how I really feel we're so lucky to have an airport right in the middle of our urban core, but it's a really complex, constrained area, but it makes planning for a better transit link fun yet challenging. With the Central Mobility Hub no longer a current consideration, our priority is connecting the airport to our regional transit network, and so existing, very heavily used transit hubs like Santa Fe Depot and Old Town Transit Center are potential key connection points for the ATC. These transit centers not only feature heavy rail and light rail, but a variety of rapid and local buses, and it's a really important way for various residents all across the region and some of our visitors to get to various destinations. So we need to ensure, however, that all of those rail and bus services are also very frequent and reliable. The ATC on its own, as a really great project, is only going to go so far unless we're also improving the connectivity and reliability of all of the services serving those two transit hubs. And I also want to take this opportunity to mention that our analysis of airport employees, origins, and destinations is finding that more than half of those employees going to the airport on a daily basis live in our South Bay and central parts of the region. And that's really important for us to know because there's a lot of connection there between Blue Line and Orange Line services and those rail options that get us into our urban core and then eventually over to the airport. And there's a good proportion of employees at the moment using transit to get to the airport, much higher than our typical employment commute patterns. So it's something to keep in mind. In the last several years, we've looked at various modes that have been identified for the ATC, but each has a mix of opportunities and challenges. And we really don't feel there's truly one silver bullet mode that's the best option for connecting to the airport. All of them require some certain sacrifices or some certain other considerations that can make them a success, especially given the really constrained area that we're working with. But none of these modes preclude extending beyond the airport to other locations. So whether we're talking about any of these rail modes or bus options, there's always the opportunity, and we should be thinking about potential for extension beyond the airport. So first I'll start with automated people mover, or commonly referred to as APM. This mode does not exist in our region currently. It would be a new type of mode, and it's really common in a lot of airports that you may travel to get between terminals, and occasionally you can get from a terminal to a connecting station. So Oakland is an example of where you can ride an APM and get to the Coliseum BART station and then go on your way through the BART network. And so that would be a similar type of situation that we could set up in our region, where we have a connection to the airport to one of our rail transit hubs. It's not without its challenges, though. We don't have any identified operator for this type of mode, and it requires more infrastructure, including more new infrastructure, including a maintenance and storage facility, which doesn't exist. And we'd have to find about a 2 to 3 acre space for that somewhere in our urban core to accommodate that mode. So that's a challenge. But it can be run at higher frequencies for the most part, every few minutes. And so that's why it could be an attractive option for the region to consider. And that's why other regions like the Bay Area have decided to use it despite the cost. For the trolley mode, it would be using our existing trolley option that we have today with our light rail and extending it to the airport. So serving downtown, and I'll show you a map in a moment, serving the downtown neighborhood and spurring west off to the airport in order to offer a new airport trolley line layered on to the rest of our network with our blue, orange, and green lines. This option it's still being determined precisely how frequently we could run the service, given the other light rail options that we have serving downtown and using shared track. But we're looking at some options to better improve the infrastructure and determine how best could the trolley operate and be its best version of itself in getting to the airport and serving folks, whether they're using it to get through downtown or go to the airport. And then last but certainly not least is bus service. We know that just improving frequencies for the bus options like the Route 992 or the San Diego Flyer connecting Old Town to the airport today are not enough. We need to really dedicate space on our roadways to ensure it can fly by the traffic and not get caught in that awful congestion that we see by our waterfront and near the airport on a daily basis, and most notably during busy holiday weekends. So we're looking at the bus as not just a typical local bus service, but a BRT rapid bus with dedicated infrastructure to make sure it has space to move and get past the traffic. So I'll walk you through with some maps to show where some of the connection options that we have developed to date for the various concepts by mode, what they look like. This map is showing a lot of different options for APM or people mover concepts, each with different variations. We have 5 different concepts that connect all to the airport and go to various places, including one connection up to Old Town Transit Center, most of them going to the rental car center and Middletown Trolley Station. That's been dubbed the Port Transit Center on this map because it's closely located to the port headquarters on Pacific Highway. And then some other connections to downtown, including Santa Fe Depot, the Civic Center, and the Convention Center. We have a lot of variations within each of these concepts because we have to account for the different ways a people mover could be constructed. It could be an elevated service like we see with the trolley up in UTC today, or it could be a bored tunnel underground or a hybrid of the two. So we've developed concepts to account for all of the various ways the mode could be constructed, and that's what you see on the map here. For the trolley connection, we have 2 variations for how the trolley could connect downtown to the airport. The solid magenta line on the map shows how a trolley service, a new airport potential trolley service, could go from 12th and Imperial Station up through downtown using track that's on street today, and then spur off towards the west to temporarily be in a cut and cover tunnel before becoming elevated as shown with the blue color, to get to the airport and arrive right in between terminals 1 and 2. That would mean that the line would need to share track with the blue and green line trolleys that operate in downtown today. And we're in the process of conducting some modeling to determine, could this newer airport line be better than every 15 minutes? Could we allow for all 3 trolley lines to operate at 7.5 minutes, like our blue line down to San Isidro gets to do today? So we're in the process of examining that to be able to update that characteristic or that feature of concept 6A for the trolley service, and it will help us with our planning decisions as we decide what the best fit for ATC could be for the region. And the second variation that we're working on for the trolley follows the exact same path as the solid line on the map. It's just that you'll see a dashed orange line near the county center Little Italy community. And it's a feature that we're looking at to extend a trench, a trolley trench in downtown. Today, if you ride through Little Italy, there's a trench that goes underneath a couple of streets, Hawthorne and Grape, and we'd be looking to extend the trench south to Santa Fe Depot so that the trolley has the benefit of operating underground, being separated from traffic, and it could provide some benefits not just to an airport trolley line, but the blue and green lines that use that track as well. And I have some images just to illustrate what we mean. Today in downtown, this is looking down at West Hawthorne Street in North Little Italy community, and today the light rail tracks shown in red operate underneath the street, and then the heavy rail tracks for Coaster and Amtrak are operating on street. And here's a view of what that looks like. If you're crossing at Hawthorne, you can see kind of the trench in the upper right where the trolley tracks go underneath the street. Further down today, all sets of tracks, the heavy rail tracks and the light rail tracks, are on street. They do not go underground. So what we're examining is how we can have the trolley go underground underneath streets like Ash, Beach, and Cedar, so that there's a longer trench and trolley services could benefit from that separation of roadways. And if we're thinking about all of the trolley services operating at up to 7.5 minutes, it's going to add a lot of value for safety reasons and also for traffic purposes to separate the trolley from the street. And here's just another street view of what it looks like today on Ash to cross the 4 tracks. So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the bus option. We like to refer to today's bus services to the airport as ATC today, and we have a couple of different options that we're working through in order to improve bus service to and from the airport. One would be to simply determine how we could fund better frequency in the very near term for both Route 992 connecting downtown to the airport and the San Diego Flyer connecting Old Town to the airport. Right now, 992 operates 15 minutes during the day, but 30 minutes in the evenings, and the Old Town San Diego Flyer operates at around 20 minutes all day and all night. And so one option is to, following the opening of Terminal 1 Phase A this fall, would be to increase frequencies so that both services are operating better all day, more frequently all day and into the evening, so that all folks could benefit. We have seen, a good proportion of those employees destined to the airport using transit to get there, and many of them, more than half of them, like I mentioned, are coming from the South Bay. So there's an opportunity for a blue line to downtown and better frequent 992 service to the airport to support their commutes. And that could also support any folks coming across the border and coming into our region and destined for downtown and or the airport. And then more midterm, we could think about some of those enhancements to bus services that would dedicate space on roadways to give them dedicated lanes, whether it's North Harbor Drive or Pacific Highway. Both of those roads are options that we're looking at for dedicated infrastructure to get bus service to and from the airport. And it could be something that we could look to implement after all Terminal 1 improvements are finished in a few years. So we're collaborating with MTS and the Airport Authority to think about increased frequencies in the near term, and then more midterm, how to dedicate roadway space and build a BRT, more capital project for the bus service to the airport. We're doing that because we have a lot of concepts for rail But those concepts, even if once we select a preferred concept for the region that could be a rail option, it's going to take a long time to implement. So we're trying to think about those near-term bus solutions at the same time and propose a type of project that could potentially be implemented sooner while we're identifying what the preferred rail option is for ATC. And because we have so many of those concepts, people mover and the couple of trolley variations, we need to pare them down. We need to reduce them and identify what the preferred option is for the region and determine if we're going to move forward with that by environmentally clearing it and then eventually constructing it. So we've put together a pare down approach for all of the rail options. We've been building off the last set of concept evaluation study information that the agency had published in 2023. One of the big efforts we're doing is accounting for that new trench feature for the trolley and determining how feasible that could be. And we've added that new variation to the set, but we have to update all of the concept costs into $2025 and begin the pare down process using a three-step approach. So first, we're going to look at quantitative aspects regarding transit connectivity, the number of people, jobs, and places within a lot of the connections and station areas, and determine which ones relatively score higher versus others, and determine with our partner agencies and the public which ones could be pared out. We've also been doing an airport travel survey, which I'll talk about next, but we'll use those airport travel survey results to help us validate the pare down approach and take into consideration a lot of other elements. Constructability, funding considerations, the partner agency perspectives, because they're all unique and different, city versus MTS versus NCTD versus Caltrans. Everyone has priorities, thoughts, and opinions about a lot of these rail options, and we need to gather and account for those and take that into consideration as part of our pare down approach before we identify a low number of concepts that could be environmentally analyzed. Our airport travel survey was something that we did to support the ATC project, but it also supports a lot of other planning efforts, including the regional plan, and it's vital to updating our transportation model. So it had been at least a decade, if not longer, since we'd done this type of travel survey. And it was exciting to conduct it in the fall in partnership with the airport so that we could conduct in-person interviews with folks traveling to the airport, either on buses or shuttles or there at the terminals, both in the secure and non-secure areas at the rental car center. We needed to collect at least 4,500 responses to get a good scientific sample. And it was a mix of face-to-face interviews and then some online self-administered surveys, but only for those folks that were there live at the airport experiencing their journey. And it included the Thanksgiving holiday weekend. So we got some interesting perspective from that period as well. And there was a lot of fog this fall. So that helped us because it kept people at the airport to help us take the survey. But we really thanked them for their time, and we had some incentives that we could provide on a random lottery basis. So that survey data is helping us with our planning and modeling, as I mentioned. We've been sharing these very early preliminary insights regarding a set of data that we got from the in-person surveys. We had a goal of nearly 3,500 in-person surveys to complete. We got nearly 4,000. That was great. And we had 1 in 4 that were interested in taking a follow-up optional survey. So besides telling us about how they traveled to the airport and why and everything involved with their trip, we'd also gotten some information about a more stated preference, more features regarding what they would desire to get to the airport, kind of travel time comparison and more opinion-based responses, which are supplemental but also helpful. We learned that 70% of folks traveling through the airport were doing so for personal and non-business travel, and then the other 30% was for business. And a majority of folks, no surprise, are either driving themselves or getting dropped off in a car. So we're going through the data. We've been sharing some preliminary insights with our partner agencies just to do some quality control and determine what's best to summarize, and we'll be really excited to publish the final survey report later in the year. And I just want to also mention what we're doing throughout the year to engage our stakeholders. We've had regular touch points with all of our planning partners at all the partner agencies in the region regularly. We're going to be holding a couple of partner agency workshops centered around that rail pare down process. We have one coming up in June with all of our local partner agencies. And we've been making some updates to boards like at MTS, the airport and the port to keep them informed about what's going on with the process. When it comes to more general public engagement, we want to be able to make sure we glean regional and urban core perspectives. We've started by holding a stakeholder roundtable, and we were excited to have organizations from our CBO network here at SANDAG participate, 4 of them, Olive Wood Gardens, Bayside, El Cajon Collaborative, and Vista Community Clinic all participated in our first roundtable in March, and we appreciate it. We'll have another one this summer, and we'll be determining what kind of in-person or online activity for the general public to learn more about the project and provide input, what we'll do. And if we are directed by our board to proceed to in the environmental analysis phase, that'll come with even more public engagement opportunities in the form of public scoping meetings. Wanted to just highlight, as we've gone to other partner agency boards like MTS, Airport, and the Port, kind of provide a summary of their comments. You know, they have good support for connecting to those existing regional transit hubs, not concerned any longer with a central mobility hub. And they do want to be partner agency collaborators with us on more near-term solutions with regards to the bus. They feel our approach to paring down the rail options is sound and practical, and they support us in our efforts to integrate peer agency research and best practices from across the nation and globally to help us with our planning, while acknowledging that every mode, like I talked about, is full of both opportunities and challenges to implement. And I'll close by sharing kind of our seasonal calendar, where we've been and where we're going. We'd completed that airport travel survey in the fall. We're in the process of analyzing and summarizing all of the data. We've developed our rail pare down approach. We've started to make those refinements to the trolley concept with the trench option. And we'll be carrying out more stakeholder roundtables, determining how we can deploy our public input strategy and getting started on near-term bus solutions so that we can be ready in the fall and winter of this year to determine, are we going to environmentally clear and set out on that journey to environmentally clear a rail option and keep providing updates on near-term bus solutions to the airport that helps residents, visitors, and employees alike. And that concludes the update, and I'm happy to, of course, discuss and answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Marissa. Do we have any comments from the public?
We do. We have 2 public comments, Chair. The first is Cesar Javier, followed by Alex Wong online.
Thank you.
We are just a bit learner, Cesar Javier and my wife. Pointers. At this time, state and condition. Ma'am Presenter, excellent planning and development. At this time, state and condition. We need core city. San Diego, where are they? County Air Pollution Control District. Environmental group, land use group, or our neighbor, federal IPA. This is a federally funded group of thinkers. They are just hotels somewhere. They should be here. Next pointer is preparedness. Do we have alternate airport to prepare for this task, smooth transition, connection? We ought to plan that too, if in case. We are in a rim of fire. We cannot defeat nature, but we could prepare and protect us. Last, who is the lead agency? The person. One person who is capable to lead. We need that for unity of effort. One baton to orchestrate all this group with good ideas in order to accurately fulfill the vision. Thank you.
Next is Alex Wong.
I strongly support improving transit to the airport. However, the airport trolley, concept number 6, is deeply flawed. The airport trolley could bottleneck existing trolley lines. It would merge onto existing blue and green line tracks. This would create a bottleneck. Even if the trolley trench is extended all the way to Ash, mid-coast and green line frequencies would likely be permanently hard capped to 10 minutes each. 10-minute mid-coast and green line frequencies would be woefully inadequate because University City and Mission Valley are adding 122,000 new residents and nearly 100,000 new jobs combined. The mid-coast and green line could easily need 5-minute frequencies, not 10-minute frequencies. Instead of spending $1.35 billion to build an airport trolley that limits mid-coast and green line frequency, SANDAG could speed up the 992 bus and airport flyer with bus lanes, signal priority, off-board fare payments, and onboard boarding. This would make the 992 and airport flyer far more reliable than any rapid bus that currently exists, and it would cost only $54 million. That's 25 times cheaper than the airport trolley. This would enable the mid-coast and green lines each to run every the 992 and the airport flyer each to run every 7.5 to 10 minutes, better than the airport trolley's proposed 10 to 15-minute frequencies. I also strongly support the South Leg automated people mover. At $1.54 billion, the people mover would cost only slightly more than the $1.35 billion airport trolley. However, the people mover could come every 2 minutes, far more frequently than the airport trolley's proposals 10 to 15-minute frequencies. That's because the people mover, being driverless, would have far cheaper per hour operating costs than the trolley, and therefore MTS could afford to run it far more frequently.
That concludes our public comment on this item, Chair.
Okay. Do any members of the working group have any additional comments or questions to raise at this time? Yes.
Hi, yeah, so I was just like, I know that you have another set of survey, and this is, I wonder, maybe you want to consider like asked the cost per variation for the public or for the consumer, and then the estimated time of arrival for point-to-point per variation and the ease of transfer. I think like those are the considerations for a public or consumer to consider this proposal. Also because like for me, if I travel over the airport, I count like if I pay for parking versus being dropped off by an Uber versus taking this option. So I think those are like strong points for them to consider this proposal. Thank you.
Any additional comments and questions? Yes. Ms. Rodriguez.
So I want to thank you for your presentation. It was really informative. I saw that on your survey, you have a 60-40 ratio with 60%, I think, of the people that took the survey being visitors, and 40% actually being like residents from the county. When you're analyzing your data, are you gonna weight that differently? Because I think when you're surveying people that reside here and have to count the costs, kind of like the public comments were saying of, you know, what is the timeline going to be on construction, and how is it going to impact our traffic and our congestion, and are we going to see improvement, you know, like when are we going to see improvement? I think that should be weighted differently. They just have more investment than someone who, you know, is visiting their family and doesn't have to drive in that traffic and has the luxury of, you know, having people, and this isn't always the case, but I think they have a different investment in their travel.
No, thanks for that comment. I'll answer that in two parts, or just respond to that in two parts, which is we take that sample and as a starting point have to expand to be representative of the larger population, whether it's residents or tourists. So we know what our residential population is, and we compare that to percentage gathered for the survey. And then we know how many, say, enplanements there are or visitors coming into the airport. So we have to expand to make sure it's representative. But the weighting option that you bring up is important because then we can be able to summarize results by travel market, by population, whether it's visitor, resident, and employee, not pit them against each other in any way, but summarize it in a way that it's reflective of their responses and opinions. And the weighting option will come into play as we summarize the results.
Perfect, thank you.
Any additional comments, questions? Ms. Hernandez.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. I learned a lot. I have a few questions. One, you said exploring if the trolleys can operate at 7.5 minutes instead of 15. That would be the trolley, the airport trolley only, or the other trolleys operating on that route?
All of them. So right now, SANDAG has assumed that the airport trolley as a new potential service would operate at 15 minutes. We wanted to challenge that assumption and determine with some testing if that new trolley service and blue and green lines could all run at 7.5 minutes, despite experiencing occasional delays, carrying out randomization tests to determine how it could be possible. Can't ever control for some chaotic, unexpected, tragic event that would halt all services. That's an outlier, but we're doing tests to determine if it's possible for all three services to achieve 7.5.
Got it. And increasing to that frequency, does this significantly increase costs for operations?
It would add more operations costs, but what we have learned is at the moment, given MTS's capacity to handle vehicles at their existing maintenance and storage facility, that's sufficient for those three services to operate at that level. If more trolley service in the region and other services are expanded or things change, then that could change the story regarding maintenance and storage.
I see.
And other costs to consider.
Yeah. So based on the knowledge you're sharing today, I support that. I support the 7.5 trolley time because we're always pushing for frequency. And if it can be achieved within the current infrastructure and the current cards that we have, that's an efficient way to spend money, right? It's not going to cost us millions. And I'm just speaking for the transit riders that Mid-City works with and represents. Frequency is always top priority. And then I have a question. So efficiency is being considered when selecting the best course of action. Is cost being, I imagine it is, but how is cost being taken into consideration?
We'll definitely consider cost, and especially once we can update all of our costs by concept to $2025, that's going to be discussed heavily with the partner agencies to start. But what I can tell you is that based on our 2023 concept report that was published, we have a range of costs for people mover, trolley, and bus. And on the people mover side, it does range between 2 to 6 billion, just depending on if it's elevated or a tunnel or a mix. On the trolley side, it's right now between 1 and 1.7 billion, but that does not include the trench aspect that we're studying now. So we have to add on what could come with that cost and update them. And on the bus side, it's significantly cheaper. We've published ranges between about 50 to 70 million, but we need to update them to account for $2025 in escalation and make sure we've thought about every type of capital improvement, BRT infrastructure investment that could help the bus. So that cost will go up, but it's relatively cheaper as you go from people mover, trolley, and bus.
Thank you. And are there existing sources of revenue that would fund the construction of these projects, or it would require a new source of revenue being approved?
We would need more dollars than what we have budgeted currently for the ATC. We can get through environmentally clearing a rail project and getting started with design, but the region would need to seek more dollars to complete design and construct. But the ATC also has a special situation where there's an opportunity to potentially tap into some airport funds at the construction phase, but we'd have to design fully first and fill that gap. And with more frequent services running, like you mentioned with trolley, more operational dollars are also going to be needed in the region. And we're in a situation that many of us know where we're having trouble just increasing some transit frequencies on buses and rail today because of a shortfall. And that has to be taken into consideration and discussed.
Thank you.
Mhm. Mm-hmm.
Ms. Grover? I know.
Thank you for the presentation. It's exciting to learn more about this project. I had a couple of questions, and forgive me if you covered this. Are all of these projects, is the plan that they're electric, like no emissions vehicles?
We want to, automated people mover has different types of technologies, but electric, like with trolley, is what our minds are wrapped around. And then we're not at all excluding that option from buses, especially since our transit agencies have certain mandates or goals to achieve over time with electrifying fleets. So we'll be taking those costs into consideration.
Okay, super. Yeah, I think that's really important as we think about our GHG goals. And then a second question or comment, thinking about the funding apparatus. That's right. That's always the question. And just curious, maybe you're not there yet, but thinking about, like, especially this survey, 60% of folks were non-residents. And so are there options for, like, residents get some sort of discounted rate on airport transit services, and then visitors have, kind of like the tourist tax kind of situation, if that's a consideration for the funding?
I think we definitely have to keep an open mind, and because the ATC is so unique in serving all three of those populations, have to think creatively about potential funding sources. I know it's something that the city already does at length to think about how tourist dollars can better support local services and funneling those dollars to be able to do that. But we should consider it and keep an open mind for this project.
Thank you. Mr. Pollard?
As we're talking about this, and I'm thinking of the maintenance yard that MTS is trying to install in Home Avenue. Is there a chance we could get them to come to this meeting and talk about how they're progressing on taking the diesel lines offline and transitioning to either, I think it was a hydrogen and electric buses? Can we ask them to come here and maybe give us an update on how they're doing?
What's the project again, Barry?
It's with MTS, and they're trying to transition from the diesel and the fuel powered buses and move towards electrifying their bus line. And I know the last time I talked to Mark some time ago, there was a schedule of what they're doing in increments. So maybe just asking them if they could come up and give us an update, or call me, since it's going to be right in, my backyard kind of thing.
Okay, that sounds good. We'll direct staff to take a look at that.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Rodriguez.
So I have one more, and it's very abstract, I think. But when I'm looking at these projections, I'm not really seeing any changes kind of to how North County is doing any of the transportation towards the airport. And I'm just wondering, is that because we're taking into account like the other airport, the McClellan Airport? I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but is there just a thought that those residents are going to funnel more towards that airport instead of traveling here, or we didn't feel like maybe there was enough need? I'm not sure.
Well, North County has that airport, but it's very small and serves a very limited market. And until our region decides to make decisions regarding other airports and doing things like LA and Orange County and having multiple sites, we have to consider San Diego International Airport as our single runway and our single airport that we are going to connect to. This project could certainly be flexible once the region thinks about other ways to get people flying in and out, but we have to consider North County for the most part coming down to connect to our airport in downtown to get where they need to go. And so that's why Old Town Transit Center is a transit hub that we very much have to still pay attention to because of the coaster service coming down and connecting from there, just as we will consider all Central and South Bay regions getting to downtown and connecting. So those two are very important in getting to the airport. But we don't have control as far as this project scope is concerned yet right now to think about other airports and those opportunities. Those are decisions that would have to be made on a regional basis to change travel patterns entirely in terms of how people fly to airport or travel to airports to fly out. We have our one airport that serves most all travel. And other airports in the region are just smaller private plane stuff.
But in this proposal, and maybe I'm misreading, but in this proposal, it looks like the possible connections don't really intersect or influence how North County is traveling to the airport right now. Is that correct? Am I reading that incorrectly?
They're traveling just like everyone else, majority by car, but they have the option at the moment with our coaster service or rail service to come down to our urban core and then connect. And the San Diego shuttle flyer service is one option for North County to consider to get to the airport as their closest one transfer experience. But let me know if I'm not quite answering your question or understanding your flow.
I just think, I'm just looking at these lines, I'm sorry. And so I'm looking at, so if I'm coming from Escondido, I know that I can go to the coast and then have a more direct pathway.
Or a rapid express bus straight to downtown.
But that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
So all that intersecting with Poway, I mean, do we know, and maybe this is because I haven't gone that route, I've driven, but do we know what, like the amount of time it takes to go from like some of these sections to the airport? Like,
We
is that-
do. We could look at various kind of subregions individually. There's certain benchmarks that we've set for kind of 30 to 45-minute experience to connect. And it's something that we're compiling as part of our pare down process and are looking more deeply into related to our airport travel survey. And I think what we could do is make sure that this group is looped into those results that we share at the same time we do our next roadshow of information to push out.
I would really appreciate that because I think that we want to, I mean, I guess speaking for my community, I'm sure that there's interest of, I would want to participate in public transport. I would want to do this, but is it, how much longer is it going to take me and how much more cumbersome is the process for me because the distance is further.
Right.
So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any others? I just wanted to make a couple of comments. One of the issues is if we're looking at Santa Fe and Old Town as either or propositions, and to the extent that we have a lot of our South County folks who are using the transit system already to get to the airport, I think that the Santa Fe would make a lot of sense there. It also is just one more stop from North County. If they're taking the coaster down, so they hit Old Town and then they hit Santa Fe right after that. So it's still pretty accessible to the people who are coming there. I know for tourists, sometimes Old Town might be a little bit easier, but the Santa Fe one provides direct access, and so it'd be a nice straight through shot. One of the other issues is as we're doing these and as we're contemplating transfers, say from an airport worker coming up from South Bay, takes the trolley down there, and then they have to transfer to the people mover. I know when I take, the people mover over from Oakland, it's an additional charge. And when I'm in New York, it's an additional charge to be able to take that people mover, which if you're on vacation, you're like, oh my goodness, $9 as compared to like 45 to 100, depending on which airport you're at. With an Uber makes sense, but for the everyday worker, that charge adds up significantly. So I would like an option that has one flat fare that our workers could be able to access this with. I also am glad that we're doing a pare down procedure so that we can start like synthesizing which are the best options and putting clear front runners forward. I think as was previously expressed, cost is going to be a large factor. If we're pursuing a $6 billion project, it's unlikely to see the light of day at the end of the day because we're going to need to find those dollars from somewhere. And so if we can pare down things where the price tag makes it realistic, that it will actually come forward and we'll be able to see it through completion. And those are my thoughts on it. All right. One more time, any additional comments, members? Okay. Yes, Mr. Ramirez.
Yeah, just a quick question that got me thinking, because I do think that this project is, well, first of all, I think it's great, right? I've traveled to other parts of the country and I've seen the impact of something similar concepts, right? I know in Oakland, it's great. You can get to from Oakland and then take the BART all the way to San Francisco and the entire Bay Area. And I know here, right, especially in the holidays, it's really chaotic, especially with the most like recent construction that we had going on. So I'm wondering too if something that SANDAG, because I feel like all these projects, obviously like they're expensive and that's the reality of like where we are now. But is SANDAG also looking at, okay, like it's gonna, like all these different concepts, alternatives that we're looking at, they're gonna cost X, Y, Z, but they will also generate like X amount and like economic activity to the region. Is that something that SANDAG's looking at too?
Yeah, we'll do that a bit at this early planning phase, and especially once we can dial in what that reduced set is, can look at that more precisely. There's value in, of course, looking at what near-term bus solutions can offer versus longer-term rail, especially if we can get nearer-term bus solutions done sooner and have kind of a litmus test for the impact of that type of service that has some dedicated infrastructure and how that's helping someone's quality of life, particularly an employee doing the daily grind, the daily commute. So I appreciate the comment and suggestion.
Do we have any action item on this or it's just informational? Yeah. So there's no action item on that. This is for our information. So now we'll move on to item number 4. There we go. Item number 4 on our agenda is an overview from SANDAG's role in housing. This is a topic that this group requested at the beginning of the year. We are welcome to Stacy Cooper from SANDAG for this presentation. Hi, Ms. Cooper.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Stacy Cooper, I'm a senior planner here on the Sustainable Communities team. I'm here to talk about SANDAG's role in housing. So SANDAG has several federal and state designations that form the framework of what we do as an agency. Today, we're going to focus on why we're involved in housing. Our designations as a regional transportation planning agency, regional transportation commission, council of governments, and metropolitan planning organization provide SANDAG with specific yet limited responsibilities in housing. As part of the regional plan, which you're all familiar with, SANDAG is responsible for developing a compliant sustainable community strategy, or SCS, that includes a coordinated transportation network and land use pattern. As a regional transportation commission, we distribute smart growth incentive program funding to local jurisdictions that incentivize projects in smart growth areas identified in the SCS. And we recently brought criteria for cycle 6 to this working group. As a Council of Governments, or COG, we're responsible for producing our region's Regional Housing Needs Allocation, or RHNA methodology. And in 2019, Assembly Bill 101 expanded SANDAG's role in housing by establishing the Regional Early Action Planning Grants, or REAP, and provided MPOs with planning dollars for housing. With these funds, we developed our Housing Acceleration Program. So, what is RHNA? Since 1969, California has required that all local governments adequately plan to meet the projected and existing housing needs of everyone in their community. It's not a prediction of housing, it's not a cap on demand or production, and it's not limited due to existing land use. So how does the RHNA process work? The California Department of Housing and Community Development, or HCD, is the state agency in charge of RHNA. Approximately every 8 years, HCD, in consultation with the Department of Finance and the Council of Governments, determines each region's housing need at a variety of affordability levels. The COG, or SANDAG in this case, develops a RHNA methodology to distribute those units to each city. Then the local governments update their housing elements to show how they will accommodate RHNA and meet local housing needs. So our region, our region is currently in the 6th RENA cycle, which covers the period from April 2021 through April 2029. HCD determined that we needed 171,685 new units to meet projected and existing housing needs. For this cycle, SANDAG developed its methodology based on the availability of transit and jobs, then applied an equity adjustment. In 2020, the final RENA allocation was adopted by the board, and each jurisdiction was given its allocation at the 4 income levels: very low, low, moderate, and above moderate. Onto our Housing Acceleration Program. As I mentioned, AB 101 established the REAP program and expanded SANDAG's role in housing. SANDAG received $6.8 million in formula funding from REAP 1.0 and launched its Housing Acceleration Program. In 2022, we received $40.5 million from REAP 2.0 to continue and expand the program. So our Housing Acceleration Program is comprised of 3 core strategies: local jurisdiction support, so we offer technical and financial assistance to support the cities and the county; data analysis and policy resources, so we have data, policy tools, and best practices for local jurisdictions, stakeholders, and communities; and then regional initiatives, so we provide education, leadership, and funding opportunities to accelerate housing. So one of the things I wanted to focus on today is our Housing Policy and Planning Tool, or the HPPT. So it's available on SANDAG's open data portal, and it allows users to analyze data sets and policy documents related to housing. So you guys have a link in your agenda, but there are a few modules. Today we're going to focus on our region's RENA progress. So we're going to click on the RENA dashboard. Kendall. No worries. Perfect. And we're going to scroll down a little bit. Okay, so the first chart here shows our RENA needs versus our progress. So you can see at the 4 different affordability levels, how many housing units our region needs in the blue and how many we've permitted so far in the orange. So you can look at that. This is a region-wide look. If you scroll a little bit further down and you change to, we're going to change our housing element cycle to the 6th cycle, which is our current cycle. And we can see RENA needs by jurisdiction and by affordability level. So if you scroll down a little bit further in the progress report, by affordability level, we can see the percentage that we've attained thus far during this cycle. The dotted line that you see there is where we are currently. So we're at 37.5% of the cycle, and our goal is 100%. This data is currently based on what jurisdictions submit to HCD in their annual progress reports. The data here is only through 2023. The 2024 data will be updated probably later this month or in early July. Then if you scroll down a little bit further, you can see progress by each individual jurisdiction and how they're doing in the 4 income categories. And this is public, so everybody has access. You can take a look, and if you guys have any questions, feel free to follow up. Okay, so the REAP 2.0 program builds on the success of REAP 1.0 and expanded the program focus by addressing the state's housing and climate goals. There are 3 objectives of REAP 2.0: accelerating infill development that accelerates housing supply, choice, and affordability, affirmatively furthering fair housing, and reducing vehicle miles traveled. You may remember a few years ago, we did a lot of community outreach to develop our program priorities for REAP 2.0, and we submitted 4 proposed uses to the state for approval. The first one is local jurisdiction support. So we awarded $12.3 million in capital and planning grants for 15 projects to the local jurisdictions. We also provide technical assistance to city staff and the county staff as they implement their 6th cycle housing elements and comply with new housing legislation. And you just saw the housing policy and planning tool, which we will continue to update as new data becomes available. We also have an affordable housing program. What that is, SANDAG contributed $15 million to a regional housing trust fund that's being administered by the San Diego Foundation. The money will be awarded on a competitive basis as grants and low interest loans for projects that fulfill all 3 objectives of REAP 2.0, and applications are currently being evaluated. In addition, we also coordinate with cities and transit agencies and developers on regional grant applications like the Affordable Housing Sustainable Communities Grant. Our third proposed use and what we're working on is a transit agency partnership. So we're collaborating with MTS and NCTD to support activities that support affordable housing development and redevelopment at transit hubs. We also have a tribal partnership. So we contributed $4.4 million to the Southern California Tribal Chairmen's Association, or the SCTCA, and developed a program to support the tribe's unique housing needs. 8 tribes applied for the funding and were awarded. And next steps, so we're going to continue. There's what I didn't mention, there's a lot of housing legislation that's going through the legislature right now, so we're closely monitoring that to see how it'll impact SANDAG and our local cities. We're also working on some RENA reform efforts. HCD had published a guide of things that they were looking to do in the next cycle to help reform and streamline the RENA process. We're going to continue to advocate for the continuation of REAP funding. So REAP 2.0 funding currently only goes till June of next year. So we're hoping to be able to get more funding after that to continue in the housing realm. We're going to update the housing policy and planning tool and continue to provide TA to our local jurisdictions. And that concludes my presentation. Open it up to any questions, comments.
Thank you so much, Ms. Cooper. Do we have any public comments?
Yes, we have one public in person, Cesar Javier.
Thank you.
Cesar Javier, I wonder if you could join me in my dream. I speak of the core city, San Diego, the junior San Diego, if I say it. It should be this show window. I'm just trying to connect, reconcile. SANDAG has a portion of that responsibility on affordable housing, meaning human shelter. San Diego has a strategy that contradicts the solution from SANDAG. If you could imagine that, there is a huge gap. There must be a dovetail here based on the synergy of both entities. The lead on mobility circulation and now encroaching portion of that affordable to the strategic sheltering of San Diego. It doesn't. One example, we have so many open spaces, buildings. We have land or real estate ready for shelter, for building. Oh, they say, oh, we have to abide with the state code. If we do that, we can never achieve housing for everyone, particularly the homeless in San Diego City. San Diego City. Please, try to imagine that. To what extent could SANDAG say, hey, stop it, we take over? Like what they...
Thank you, your time has expired. That concludes our public comment, Chair.
Thank you. Do we have any comments or questions from the working group members? Mr. Pollard?
I got just sort of might be a random question. Under slide 15, the affordable housing programs, do we have a regional housing trust fund, or are we trying to begin one, start one? It says one of the goals is implementation of a regional housing trust fund.
So we have a partnership with the San Diego Foundation, and they're administering that. We
That's the
contributed
$40,000.
What?
That's the 40K that they.
No, so initially when we started this partnership, it was around the same time that they were launching their Housing Impact Fund. Because of the delay in the REAP funding, they launched theirs before we got this started. So we've now contributed to a regional housing trust fund that they are administering.
Gotcha.
And the projects have to fulfill the 3 objectives of REAP 2.0. The applications are currently being evaluated, and we're hoping to have projects awarded by the end of this fiscal year.
Gotcha. Okay.
And Barry, just to follow up, some of the money is being distributed as low interest loans so that money will stay in our region for the years to come.
Good. Okay. Good, good, good.
Mr. Torney.
Thank you for the presentation. Quick question on, I believe it was slide 12 where you followed the link and you mentioned that was 2023 data. And there was a line down there that stated where we should be. Was that should be as of 2023 or as of 2025?
So the data will be updated. So we pull this data directly from HCD. The local jurisdictions submit the data to HCD. They have their own portal, but it's a little bit kind of hard to really look at our region as a whole. So we've created this for our local jurisdictions. So the current data in here is up to 2023, and that line is as of 2023. So when we get the new data in 2024, we will move that line potentially. There's still a little bit of, not to get too far in the weeds, there's still a little bit of when we changed the schedule of our regional plan in 2021, we also changed our RENA cycle. So we're still working with HCD to sort of figure out, are we still on 8 years? Or are we extending it? So this was as of looking at it as if we're doing an 8-year RENA cycle. And part of the reason that we have that line in there is that there's a couple of state laws that impact the local jurisdictions if they're not making progress on RENA. So we wanted to give them an idea of like, this is how it's looking for you as a jurisdiction and us as a region.
Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Hernandez.
Hi, Stacy. First, I want to say I appreciate you giving me a crash course about this at a previous joint working group meeting, because I think sometimes it's hard for us to understand what role SANDAG plays. So I appreciate you coming out here today. And my question is also about the Affordable Housing Fund. How effective has it been, or are you keeping track of how long it takes to deliver projects through this fund versus the other routes? Is this making it faster and more cost effective?
So this is a new thing for SANDAG. So the REAP 1.0 funding could only be used for planning dollars, so there was no implementation money involved. One of the things that we had heard during all of our outreach was that there's a lack of like gap funding in this region. Mm-hmm. So that was sort of where it came up, the idea to start this regional housing trust fund. We haven't actually awarded the money yet. We will be monitoring that. We've also looked at in the applications, not me because it's being administered by the San Diego Foundation, but it's what is the development timeline on all these projects. So we will be monitoring that, and we'll have more available data once we know which projects are actually going to be awarded.
Okay. When do you think that data would be available? A year or two? Longer?
In terms of what projects we're awarding, I'm hoping, so they're currently evaluating, we're hoping to have the money awarded by the end of this fiscal year. So we'll know more about which projects were selected based on the competitive nature of the application. And we should have a preliminary data available when those are awarded, I would say end of June, early July. In terms of further data, they will have to submit reports. We have to report to the state every year. So we will continue to monitor how the program is doing.
Okay.
But we anticipate, because we're able to give the money directly to developers as opposed to like cities or other entities, that the money will get spent and development will happen quicker.
Okay. And so this is a bigger conversation question, but has SANDAG and other stakeholders in the region ever considered setting up an affordable housing agency, which streamlines the application, streamlines the funding, and is supposed to speed up the process?
I'll let Tweri take this one.
Yes, that's a great question. There was it was a couple of years ago, and Stacy remind me, it was Senate Bill. I can't remember the exact Senate bill. We can follow up with you on what the numbering was, but we had looked at a regional affordable housing financing agency. that effort did not gain the support that it was needed in order to go through the legislation, because that would be creating a new authority for the San Diego region. And so right now, SANDAG is not pursuing anything further in that space, but that was something that was pursued several years ago based on different leadership and different legislators that were in Sacramento at the time. But at that time, it did not pass.
Okay, thank you. That was 10 years ago, about?
2022.
Yeah,
Okay.
just a couple of years ago.
Do you think, I know there's nothing in the works, but do you think SANDAG would be open to it? Do you think the stakeholders would be open to it? What do you know about the climate?
Well, I mean, I can't speak on behalf of SANDAG in that way. This is one of the reasons I think, Stacy, we wanted to come and bring this presentation, is to really define and say what is SANDAG's role. An authority, and that particular one that was explored back in 2022, that would have been adding a new agency that could have been, folded under SANDAG or could have been separate and independent. That is not currently any of the designations that SANDAG has as an agency right now. So we have no authority to act in that way as a regional housing finance agency. That would take, legislation to change our authorities. And so right now we're not able to function in that capacity. But I can't speak on behalf of that as something that the legislator or leadership would want to pursue in the future. But right now it's not part of our housing plans.
Got it. Thank you. And the reason I bring this up is because I've been learning a lot about affordable housing agencies lately. And last week I was in LA and they passed a measure, right? And that created millions that are going to be coming in, and they're very lean. I don't think they even have a permanent office space. So there's not a lot of operation costs. They're just streamlining the money and putting it out towards building projects, building housing. Thank you.
Mr. Ramirez.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation, Stacy. It's cool to see all the different activities that SANDAG does when it comes to housing. I have two questions. One, I was already going to bring it up, but you actually brought it up. I've seen the San Diego Foundation push really heavily, or promote really heavily, that they're starting like an investment fund. Is this the same one that SANDAG is like? Or are you guys collaborating, or what's the conversation there?
So the San Diego Foundation had launched their Housing Impact Fund, and initially, I think the original plan, if the timing had worked out, we would have kind of jointly done that. The other thing is that all of the REAP money needs to fulfill the 3 objectives of REAP. So they have a Housing Impact Fund. I know that they've awarded a few projects in the San Diego region. So this is sort of like complementary, I guess you could call it. But the projects awarded through this Regional Housing Trust Fund have very specific requirements in terms of what the state's looking for, as opposed to potentially what their philanthropic dollars can fund.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And then I do see that that SANDAG is going to allocate, or has allocated before, significant amount of funding, REAP funding. I'm just wondering, is this funding like exclusively only available for like local jurisdiction, or is this something that like other, for example, like community organizations could have gone for? Because there's some community organizations that have experience, developing affordable housing projects.
So the local jurisdiction funding was only available to the local cities. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund was open to everyone in the region who fulfilled the developer requirements. Mrs. Grobner?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. It's helpful. I think we touch on so many different things over the years, and it's helpful to keep connecting the dots. I have a couple questions. Right, San Diego's been, there's said to be like the most expensive county in the country now. And so I'm curious if you can share a little bit more about like the affordability, like what are the parameters of affordability, what counts as very low, et cetera, and like who sets that standard? Like, is that at a state, or is that based on federal numbers? And then I was curious as well with some of these projects, if there's any focus on like home ownership versus rentership. And then another question, which one of our public commenters kind of touched on, was related to decisions being made at jurisdiction levels versus, the umbrella, and where does like accountability lie? And maybe these are too hard to answer, but want to put them out there.
I will take a stab at all of them. So affordability is based on area median income. So that's for our region. Very low is 50% AMI and below, low 80% and below, moderate between 80 and 120. It's not like one number because it's based on number of people in the households, but I could send you a chart so you can get a better idea of what that looks like. Another thing to note is in the 6th cycle, there were 4 income categories. Starting in the 7th cycle, there will be 2 additional. They've added acutely low and extremely low income as well to account for people experiencing homelessness. So it's going to a little bit further complicate the process, but I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. Question number 2, owner versus renter. So when we had originally submitted our proposed uses to the state, because we had heard a lot of feedback that there was interest in homeowner programs, because that didn't fulfill the one objective of accelerating development, infill development, we were not allowed to move forward with that one. In terms of projects, whether those will be owner versus renter, again, those are being evaluated by the San Diego Foundation, and I will know more once those projects are selected. I don't know that that was specific criteria. That being said, another program that I didn't mention is the REAP HIP program, Higher Impact Transformative, which we had applied as a fiscal agent for the City of San Diego, National Corps, and Casa Familiar. And their project, which is the Community Land Trust, is renter to homeownership opportunities. Accountability. So previously, the RENA process was really just a planning exercise and there was no sort of teeth to it. And then starting in the late 2010s, they really started to put more accountability into it. So there are a few bills out there that are trying to hold local jurisdictions accountable. One is, and I won't get into too much of the weeds, but if anybody wants additional information, I can send it to you. Builder's remedy. So if you don't have a compliant housing element, developers can come in and get plans passed that don't necessarily fit in with what's going on with local zoning. There's SB 423, which is the one I was talking about up there, that if you're not making RENA progress, that developers can come in and get a streamlined process for developments that fulfill certain criteria with different affordability levels. Again, don't want to get too into the weeds. And then HCD also has an accountability unit. So they actually will kind of monitor what's going on at the jurisdictions in the state. And then they could either reach out and provide TA. They've sent letters to some of our local cities, somewhat threatening letters to our local cities that if a development doesn't pass, this could happen. So they're trying to step up the accountability efforts, but again, before the 6th cycle, there wasn't really a whole lot of teeth to what the RENA process permitted or built. Ms. Rodriguez.
Stacy, I just want to thank you. I know that we've had some interactions in the past. I think this is super helpful. And I think the communities that we represent, I feel like there's a lot of families that are being pushed out of our region, our county, our state, because they can't afford to be here and it's been their home for generations. So I really appreciate this. And I know it's kind of on the tail end of it, but because I think that the accountability piece is new. When in the future, if there is going to continue to be kind of this allocation and this funding, I wonder if something can be done to offset what we're seeing in this tool. So, and this is, I know I've mentioned it before, and I'm sorry if I'm beating a dead horse, but it is, I see in some jurisdictions that we have a lot of like luxury apartments with set asides that I feel like is it's horrible to be counting that towards affordability if they have 2-3 set-asides at 80% AMI, right? 80 to 100 to 120 AMI. But we can't pass any more 50, 60% AMI local, like low income units. That's, 192 units of just in that bracket. And so I'm just wondering, when you guys are looking to partner and to, kind of award these funds, if there's any way to go based on the data and the research that you're already getting to say, I'm seeing that a lot of jurisdictions are actually making their progress in, low income, but not in very low income, or in moderately income, but not in low income. And so we'd really like to focus these funds on these types of projects to make sure that, because those brackets are ridiculous. I mean, that AMI chart. So just to make sure that we really are trying to build enough protections around, I think, the community that I think is the most vulnerable to all this. So that's my one thought. You really, truly, thank you. This is very helpful.
Thank you. Ms. Gill.
Yes, thank you so much for this presentation. It was really very helpful. And this kind of piggybacks off of what Mirjana is saying. You mentioned that there's going to be 2 additional income brackets added. So how is that going to affect mandates and what units jurisdictions are going to be required to have?
So this will be coming in the 7th cycle, so we still have a few more years. We can watch some of the other cogs in the region who will be going first to sort of see how this all pans out. Legislation was passed last year adding the 2 new income categories. No further directions really been provided. So I don't have a good answer for you. And that is a concern of our jurisdictions, is like, how do we even plan for that when we don't know? So I will continue to monitor the situation, but I don't think until sort of the bigger other cogs in the region go start their 7th cycle, I don't think we'll have much more information.
And just a reminder, COG stands for Council of Governments.
Sorry.
Other comments or questions for Stacy? Okay, thank you, Stacy. Sorry, I'm just finding my place here. Okay, this brings us to the end of our meeting. Unless anybody has any final thoughts, questions, comments. All right, there are no final member comments. Thanks everyone for coming today. We're gonna be adjourned at 11:15 a.m. Oh my goodness.